Welcome back for episode 2 of our series on team. This is the Billion Dollar Vision Podcast. My name is Trae, and I'm joined by my lovely wife, Raya. And today I'm going to ask her to start. If she had to go back and do it all over again, would you change anything?
In hindsight, no. If you asked me as I was going through challenges, yes. But
Well, you say in hindsight, no. I'm saying, let's change the question. Put yourself in the shoes of someone who's starting the business right now.
yeah.
What would you do differently?
Oh, there's so many things I would do differently. And that's why we teach in our programs how to do it different, right? Like I teach what I did really well because there was a lot of stuff I did really well.
Yeah.
You know, I kept service providers on average 5 to 8 years in a high turnover industry. Like I think I'll give myself a pat on the back for that one. But also in 10 years of managing a team, I learned so many lessons and so many things I would do different today. I say in hindsight because for what we do today in teaching people how to grow their business and their team and, you know, actually have freedom in their life.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for everything I did wrong and every lesson and every hard thing I went through because I have a different level. One, I have the lessons, which are priceless. And if I can save someone else from going through that lesson, because I had to learn it the hard way, it's worth it. But also I have the understanding.
Yeah.
And so I hear all the time of our clients going through very similar situations and I did. And I understand because I've been there too. I've been there where you can't book your team up and they're relying on you. Or I've been there when you can't pay your bill. You know, like I've been in all of those scenarios. And so that's why I wouldn't change anything. But if I was to start over, I would do so many things different. I would do what I teach now because it's all my lessons.
What about the first hire? Would it be a different position? Would it be, if you could go back, would it be a receptionist? Would you start with the next service, microblading? Would it?
I mean, I think it depends on the situation. I think at the time, another waxer made the most sense that
Gotcha.
she could also work the front desk. I take in with our clients if it was a similar like situation of who do I hire first. I would look at like, well, how much stuff do you actually have on your plate that of like admin versus like how much you need a whack. Like I would like look at the situation
Right.
a little differently. But it would be a completely different hiring process. I would actually have a hiring process.
Yeah. So in around 2021, the business finally hit 7 figures, right?
But before that, we were at like 800 to 900 for a couple years.
Right. And one of the things for everyone who's listening is obviously 2021 is just after the pandemic. So the business stayed afloat, kept running,
Yep.
stayed busy, which is a testament to you as a business owner, right? So with that being said, if someone said to you, all right, you have half the time to make it to 7 figures, right? You got to do this. And so
Yeah.
instead of in 8 years, you got to do it in 4 years. What are some of the things you would do to cut the time in half?
Well, your time is going to get cut in half if you invest in a business mentor like us, and I can give you the shortcut, right? Like our clients, I mean, we have clients that have hit 7 figures, but I mean, for like specific examples on top of my mind, we had someone that followed pretty much the same path. She was a waxing and lash salon. I was just waxing, but she's waxing and lash. She went from waxing and lash studio to adding laser hair removal after going through 7-figure teams and hearing that we did it, scaling her business, growing it. And she not only had the same results we did with laser, which was like $30,000 months right off the bat, but she's hitting $90,000 months her second or third year in business. I wasn't doing $90,000 months then. She had a baby, was able to stay home right away. Like we have example after example of people investing in our programs, learning the shortcut, taking my 10 years of experience and collapsing the timeline and literally doing it in 2 years. We have clients from our platinum group last year that are doing $60,000 months their first year in business. Like, and they're either out of the treatment room or very limited, like 1 day a week in the treatment room. Like, this is through the vehicle of growing their team. And so that's the best shortcut you could ever do. And that's why we invest so much. You know, when we want to get to the next level, we're always willing to invest in mentors at a very high level, right? Like a high investment, because we know it's the shortcut, and it could take us 5 years to figure it out on our own, or we could pay someone $20,000 and we get there in a year. Like, it saves you time, energy, money, everything. And the money is because it takes you a shorter time, right? You make less mistakes. So you invest up front, but you save on the back end.
Yeah. And that's one thing. I know, like, we're in an era where people say you don't have to go to college, right? Mm-hmm. And I always tell people that when this conversation comes up about college, I don't think anyone has to go to college, but the one thing I tell people is, like, the fundamental idea of paying for an education to learn how to do something in order to make money, that idea of school is correct.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
I think where people get it wrong is they say, oh, well, you don't got to go to school. You're just going to go in debt. They're not giving people the other half of it. In order to learn any skill, any trait, to start any business, you're going to have to make some sort of financial investment into education, right?
Yeah.
So what you just said makes a ton of sense, right? Like that you would do it sooner. You would get the teachings sooner. You would get the mentor sooner, which is very, very important. There's no one that I can think of, any entrepreneur that's super successful, that has no mentor at all. Even Warren Buffett, he has a mentor. But what would you do less of in order to reach 7 figures sooner?
To reach 7 figures quicker, I would do a lot less stuff in general. Like, I would really focus on, what am I best at, right? Am I best at marketing? Am I best at waxing? Am I best at growing the business? And if you're the business owner, for most people, unless you hire a CEO, or are this, or we're partners and you're the CEO, usually the position you have to place yourself in is in that CEO role, which is growing the business, growing the team. And to do that, you have to take a lot off of your plate, because it may seem really easy to just be like, oh, I'll just sweep the floors because I've been sweeping the floor solo. I've been sweeping the floors my whole life. Let me just do it if someone didn't do it. But you have to start looking at your time differently. And all those little distractions are just that. Like, they have to be done. They do not have to be done by you. And so I would delegate faster so that I can really use my expertise where it's needed, which is, essentially like going back into a brick and mortar, the business growth. And so, like, there has to be someone focused on the business growth. The reason we grow as Bosses in Beauty is because you're focused on the growth, right? And I'm focused on the teaching. So it works really well together. If neither of us was focused on the business growth, the business would not grow, right? Like, someone has to do that. And I think that's where a lot of estheticians go wrong is, they're focused on so many things. They want to help do the jobs of their team members, which I've done before as well, of like, well, she didn't do this, let me just fix it for her. Instead of teaching them how to fix it themselves and do it right themselves, because then you're always fixing things. And really honing in on your time and skill set of, my job is to grow the business. And anything that falls under that is what, I need to focus on. So if that's growing the team, if it's that focusing on vision, if it's marketing, unless those are also hired out.
One thing you didn't mention was socializing, partying, hanging out.
Yeah.
I know you didn't do a ton of that, but how much do you think that could hinder an entrepreneur's success and timeline, right?
That's hard. So there's a couple things to that. It's hard for me to say because I'm, as you know, as my husband, like, I'm more of a homebody, and I've always been that way. Even when I was single and no kids, like, it's a Friday night, I'm home at, like, I'm in bed at like 9:30 p.m., even earlier than now, like just researching and watching documentaries and doing my thing. Like I was never like, I'm not, and it's not that I don't like people. I'm a homebody. Like I'm more introverted, right? And so for me, it probably could have helped get us there faster if I had done more events, if had I been in the community more, for sure.
Community events, those types of things is different from partying, clubbing.
Oh, for sure. But
Right.
even for that, like being an introvert, like I probably could have tried harder, but like here's the hack. If you are like me and you don't want to go to the networking event, paid ads are the hack. Paid attention, right? And that's what I did. And so I didn't necessarily have to, because I was willing to invest money to like exchange the networking. But if you don't have the money to do paid ads, you probably do need to do the networking. On the other side of it, it's funny because I absolutely love going to entrepreneurial events with a ton of entrepreneurs that think differently, think at a very high level. Like that fills me up. It wasn't necessarily that I think like going to events to like promote my business, and it which should have been like, I don't know why. I was just in a different time period in my life, but the filling up of like learning and growth and being around really high level people, I think that's very important. You have to be around people that make you think differently, that make you think bigger, that make you think it's possible. Because like I said in the beginning, it might take something so small that once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once I started hanging out with millionaires and I was making $300,000 a year in my business and I thought I was really cool, I was like, oh, I'm still a baby business. $300,000 a year isn't that cool? Not when you have all the expenses. It's a start, but it is only the beginning. And I didn't see that until I started hanging out with people that were much more successful than I was and normalizing it.
Yeah, but that goes to like immersing yourself. You were hanging out, but you were hanging out with a purpose, right? You were putting yourself around people who were talking business, talking profitability, talking scaling. You can talk about the challenges of business, how to get over certain things with an employee, right? A lot of people don't immerse themselves into something and give themselves a chance to make it. So even if you're a child gymnast, at a certain point, if you're really trying to make it to the Olympics, most of the women that you see at the Olympics and men that were gymnasts, by middle school age, they were probably homeschooled, right? Because they were immersing themselves into their craft. People who make it to the NBA, the NFL, MLB, they've had to make certain social sacrifices and they've had to immerse themselves into their craft in order to make it to that level. And the same thing goes to business. And so anyone that's listening, the quicker, no matter what age you are, we have two students who are, I think, 23 and 24, who are killing it right now.
Yeah.
And one of them made a statement to me about they appreciated Seven Figure Team's Platinum because they have not been able to find people their same age that they could talk about business with.
Yeah.
Ironically, they both live in California and they're probably about an hour away from each other. So now maybe once a month they drive and meet up halfway and they've become each other's sounding board, so to speak, right?
That doesn't sound crazy. Like when you say to your friend, hey, I want to make $60,000 this month or $70,000, it might sound crazy. But to someone on your same level or higher, it doesn't sound crazy. It sounds normal and attainable.
It only sounds crazy because the people's realities aren't, they're not, once again, they've lost that childlike imagination, right? And so when your reality changes, so does your beliefs and what you think is possible, right? So it may sound crazy making $60,000 or $70,000 a month, but when you're around people who have done it, you know it's attainable. So you say, why not me? And with that being said, we appreciate it. And thank you for tuning in.